throw our eggs in one basket by installing a lot of natural gas and more pipes and importing more fossil fuels. Puerto Rico spends about $2 billion in fossil fuel imports right now. And the idea is, as Richard's son would tell you,
one way to get more time.
Yeah, I'm not that really we should go 100% renewable energy, and in terms of that, we have a plan. Thank you.
All right, that was nice. After the panel this morning, I think we should have interesting discussions on the power grid, because there is a lot of knowledge about what should happen and how it should happen in this room. Not say we're going to solve the problem, but we'll hopefully maybe, at least I understand it better than I did this morning. Our next speaker is Dr. John Zhang. He's I hope I pronounced your name right. He's Assistant Professor of Electrical Engineering at SUNY Binghamton, and he's going to remind us that some details we tend to overlook are generators on the grid. They need good frequency, and it's easier said than done. So, John.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Try this. Okay, so a little bit about myself. Obviously, I'm from academia, so I study power system. I study renewable energy integration. So I have projects funded by NYSERDA, working with energy storage and solar. Okay, so I'm going to share some of my thoughts about this process. I have less questions than other people have. Okay, so first I want to remind you that how the current power system works, right? It's pretty old, we know that. And so all the power plants measure is coming from thermal. And also, one key issue is that the output is controllable, right? So that's one thing. So people, 50 years ago, they managed to build this load flow-in power system where you plug in your load anytime, any place, it was all power, right? So this is before the invention of computer and the internet. So my student has a hard time to understand that. Why it's even possible, okay? And then it's an AC system for many different reasons, and a single directional power flow, all right? So we have this for many different years. So the new plan is, I know many people have their own smart grid or filter system in their mind. So this is one version. It's coming from the DOE solar office. So you can see that it will be a combination of different things, okay, for many years. And then they hope this to be decentralized, which means the power is coming from different places. And also, we will have a bidirectional power flow for sure. It's a DC plus AC system. Of course, it has to be secure. So talking about the power system security, power system is, again, invented and built before internet. So this is something to be think about. So I want to talk about one particular phenomenon that keep the power system stable these days. There are many different things, okay? There are technical perspective, economic. So the future power system, obviously, many technologies are very expensive, and so that's why it has been slow. But we see some changes. But I want to remind you one particular thing in my particular talk is that how to maintain this high power availability when we have a high penetration of renewable energy. Okay. So again, there are many different things contribute to that. So one particular thing I'd like to mention here is this thing called a coupled oscillator. Okay, it's a physical phenomenon, and we can see different oscillators in our mind, in our daily life. Pendulum, single firefly flashes happen to be an oscillator. If you couple them together by some kind of force, okay. So for example, if you have two pendulums, so then you have this coupled pendulum over here. So you can see that they share a they share the identical frequency, right, once you put them together. And then also I have a video here talking about this coupled pendulum platform. And then some particular fireflies, you can synchronize our flashes, so that's interesting. And when Huygens, a couple hundred years ago, when he was building clocks for other people, so there's one time he put 2 clocks on a fragile table, and then he realized that the 2 pendulums in the clock can synchronize. So they found that. Later on, several years ago, they said this is exactly what this is talking about. Okay, just forget about the power system for a minute. Think about this. So here's my video. Let me try to find out how to play it. Okay, this is from educational effort from Harvard, actually. So I got a couple pendulums. They are oscillating at a different frequency, okay? And they are on a very simple like a wooden board platform. So if I couple them with some platform, basically 2 wheels, so you try to hear the click. So they synchronize by themselves, right? Without microcontroller, without PLCs. So this is physics. And if you take this off the platform, so I just take it off, and then they will lose this synchronous gradually because many different reasons. The manufacturer difference, small errors. So that's what happens, okay? So my point is, our power system, our current power system, is operating in this way. So this is called the moment of initial of large generators. Some people like it, some people don't like it. To me, I feel there's some advantage they should really look into. So in the future, at least in the engineering community, we realize that there's something we should do to design those inverters in the PV system and in the wind turbine to make sure that we are still able to synchronize on this 60 Hz frequency for a long period of time, right? Because there will be a period of time that we have this combination from different energy sources. So that's my main message. I believe you have some questions. We can handle that later on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I never saw those metronomes before, but they're quite impressive. So our next speaker is Francesco Ranieri from Ecog Energy, does solar and energy financing in Puerto Rico. So he's got boots on the ground and he's going to tell us about the situation there and what could be done to lead to high penetration. Francesco.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Francesco Ranieri, as Richard said, working for Ecog Energy. We do solar projects in Northeast and as well in the Caribbean, including Puerto Rico. So I'm not a technical guy, so today I'm just going to give some, hopefully not boring information from legislation perspective and funding coming from the federal government to help currently Puerto Rico. I'm sure some of you already have information, but it's good to see how they put together towards 100% renewable. So, as we know, Puerto Rico already has a legacy of economical difficulties, which has been, of course, damaged even more by the hurricane. And so there's a harsh reality between the families being sort of promised by the federal government and the one that actually been arrived to the island. And in this perspective, the 4% renewable penetration that we have today try to get to 100%. This is what Law 17 said, and by 2050 is really challenging task, and therefore every single clean kilowatt hour count. So one part of these panels has been identified, which are the short-term issue to get to 100%. The first obvious one is access to funding. The second one is political will to reinforce some legislation framework. And those are the key players. They are shaping the current market situation in Puerto Rico, especially the relationship between the federal funding and the Puerto Rico, which then escalated down to how PREPA and the Energy Commission make regulations. So it's, as we know that FEMA has been providing roughly 1.3 billion for PREPA for renew the infrastructure, but not sort of for restore infrastructure, but not any new improvement has been done. There's other 1.9 billion coming from HUD also for this purpose. However, this not sort of being enough. We know that Ron discussed about the 20 billion grid modernization, which is supposed to, some of this funding is supposed to come directly from FEMA. There's at least this is PREPA expectation. And so we already started synergy between the federal help and the Puerto Rico grid development. In terms of solar and storage fund availability, there's 436 million available for residential and small commercial, and there's recently a new RFP for the housing, solar for affordable housing. So a big part of the solution, according to this, the Puerto Rico government, is a private and public partnership, especially for utility scale owned, and the big RFP for big industrial park. So in fact, we have to keep in mind that Puerto Rico is home of key international players, which today produce 47% of the GDPs and consume, along with other commercial, roughly 60% of the load produced by PREPA. So we can't really exclude this big international company as part of in the equation to solve and to increase 100% renewable. And that's why PREPA recently launched an RFP about 5 microgrid for industrial parks to provide electricity to big international company. Those are the same companies that are taking advantage of a net metering current regulations to do microgrid themselves, including CHP, solar and storage solution. And the wheeling regulation is something that's been recently proposed by the Energy Commission with the idea to bring the cost down, because it would allow larger and international, larger industrial facility to purchase electricity that is produced somewhere else from the island, from a different provider that is from PREPA. And that's the idea that will bring the cost down and open up the market to a more democratic way. So, of course, Puerto Rico government has a crucial role in creating the right tax incentive for investors like EcoG in this case, or a foreigner, a developer to come down the island and invest in infrastructure. The law 17 brings the renewable standard to 100% by 2050, but overall what it does is set the stage for distributed generation penetration. Then there's a new tax act number 60, which helps companies like us to have some tax credits in investment in Puerto Rico, and Opportunity Zone Act for the development in some, let's say, less wealthy area. And this act specifically highlight Puerto Rico has a 95% argument with 95% of Puerto Rico zone. Anyway, there's a hot topic in Puerto Rico. The electricity price seems they're going to go up. This is what has been let's say suggested by the oversight. It might go up to 30%. There's also a solar charge in the conversation, and these two, unfortunately, bad news. They're bringing good news in short terms, because many residential and commercial companies are now sort of spin up and installing renewable energy in decentralized form. The Energy Commission is doing a great job, especially emphasizing the role of the Law 17 and pushing more distributed generation through wheeling regulations. There's energy comparatives possible to do now, the microgrid regulation that we discussed. So, but PREPA, on the other hand, is kind of following the opposite directions, where they want to combine more utility scale, and as we mentioned before with the integrated resource plan, try to have a lot of gas coming to the island. The PREPA has a priority now to come out from the bankruptcy while enforcing 100% renewable law. One of the interviews with the CEO of Ortiz, he mentioned recently that probably PREPA is going to come from his role of usual monopoly to managing a market which is private, and managing a market which is operated by a private company. And this is to your point as well, Richard. So this is the integrated resource plan, which has to be implemented. The renewable share will go to 35%, but this is not enough. it seems that people from Puerto Rico prefer to go more like a renewable energy. That's the current asset generation of PREPA. Most of them are from the southern part of the island, even though the load happened mostly on the north part of the island. And this is what is being proposed by the integrated resource plan. So there's a lot of solar and storage plants scattered all over the island. But as I mentioned before, Puerto Rico people want more renewable. There's a study from NRL which identified potential PV development, and especially from the southern part of the island, which is less developed and there's more high irradiation. So this is just a great job that I want to highlight, done by the civil society. There's a lot of NGO, local, international, and doing great installation and resiliencies for schools and civic hospital and so on. So my point is that every single clean kilowatt hours in direction 200% counts. We've been seeing the regulations, current regulation that incentivize CDG. We've been seeing proposal from PREPA to increase more utility scale. We've been seeing a suggestion from PREPA to come out from bankruptcy. Is this enough? Well, probably not, but at least it's a good start. So my point is that every single kilowatt hour counts, even though on Richard's point, every single is a cheap kilowatt hours counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. Our next speaker is Tom Thomson. Tom Thomson works for Solar Corporation. It's a photovoltaic manufacturer, and he's been quite involved in Puerto Rico and several of the Caribbean islands and in international markets. So he's got on-the-ground experience as well. Tom was also the executive director of NESI, Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, and he's been chairman of New York Solar Energy Society as well. So, Tom? The floor is yours.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I pretty much have a simple message. I'll try to be very quick. I have been fortunate throughout my career to be able to work with some of the smartest people in our industry, and the panelists that you've heard from today are a perfect example, a little microcosm of my life where I've been able to. I am not technical, I am not really a policy guy, but I've been able to surround myself with a lot of smart people my whole career. My basic message here today is that solar is the answer, and big solar is an even better answer. The model that Richard's putting out here truly is leading the way. There is a quotation from the cartoon character Pogo. I'll open and close with quotes from Pogo. The first one is that we are surrounded by insurmountable opportunities. And that is truly the case with what we're facing here today, as demonstrated by the prior speakers. Solar is jobs. Solar is economic development. Solar is resiliency, it's inspiration, and it's about leadership. I'll do a lot of name dropping in my talk here, a little bit about Solaria to introduce the company who makes really cool solar panels. They're beautiful, they're all black. Honestly, we have a business model that is not perfectly aligned with the idea of going with big solar. We're great on residential rooftops, but what we're really about is being an agent of change, and the example that we give is working with a group called the Solar Heads of State, which is a UN-funded, a UN-chartered NGO that's working to change the landscape on solar and on island nations. So this is about Solaria. Just very quickly, we're a U.S. company headquartered in California, incorporated in the U.S. We have global operations, manufacturing, as well as sales. We have hundreds of patents. We are truly a Silicon Valley technology company. We do have a unique New York element to it, as I'll explain in a minute. As I say, we're focused on residential PV markets in 3 continents, basically North America, Europe, and Australia. We have one of the best warranties in the industry as far as the product's ability to last for the 25 years that we say it's going to produce power. And the company has experience with big solar as well, utility scale. We started a company called Nextracker which is now the world's largest tracking company. So I cover a little bit about our history with working at islands close to home and with New York developers and installers. We'll start with the island of Manhattan. There is an even smaller island just offshore from that. Roosevelt Island, where we worked with a number of parties in New York State to put the solar system on the Cornell Tech building. It's the Bloomberg Center. This is the building here. There are panels both on the roof as well as integrated into the facade. We were talking about vehicle integrated photovoltaics a minute ago. The Chief Technology Officer of Solaria Corporation, Kevin Gibson, is actually a Cornell graduate. That certainly didn't hurt in our efforts to get this project going, but we worked very closely with the New York State developer and installer, Enter Solar, also based in Manhattan. Peyton Bosworth is an interesting story. He's a part of the evolution of our industry, where he's gone from working in the real estate industry to seeing the potential from harvesting solar energy, clean kilowatt hours from real estate opportunities. There's also, I'm just going to work through the New York installation. A big shout out to Buffalo Solar, primarily because they're in Buffalo, and that we're known for snow in Buffalo. This company is doing great things. The place where the air conditioner, another irony is that air conditioning was basically invented by the Carrier Corporation in Buffalo. We have a number of other companies that we work with in Albany, Albany Solar Solutions, Plug PV. Apex is up in Glens Falls doing multi-state work. I'm from Oneida, New York, Central New York Solar, and then Renovus, again in Ithaca. Going to an island that's getting closer to Puerto Rico. Long Island has the greatest solar market in New York State. It's not a pure coincidence that Long Island had a little bit of trouble with a multi-billion-dollar nuclear plant that nobody really wanted a few years ago. And because of what that has done to rates, Long Island is now one of the greatest is the greatest solar market in New York State. We have a great partnership with Sun Nation, the nation's 19th largest residential installer, and we're rolling out our program. We work with the CED Green Tech distribution branch. They have offices all over New York. So the point is, this is about jobs. Solar Heads of State is the group that our CEO, Suki Sharma, has donated to. This is about leadership. Solar Heads of State is a group that works with island nations. They work with NGOs. We've got a picture of Francesco here with President Clinton. James Ellsmore is on the picture on the right. He is signing, I believe that is the Pacific Forum Agreement on Sustainability in Island Nations there. This is the project that Solaria donated, the solar system for the Prime Minister's residence in Jamaica. It involves students. It involves climate change. It's about involving the community, about resiliency. It's about public education, which is imperative if we're going to get institutions that have been huge blockers in the past, like PREPA, and it's not just PREPA, it's any number of problems could be identified. It's about how we, as a people, unite together, private sector, NGOs, and institutions. This is Solaria's CEO, Suki Sharma. I've actually already said most of the quotes that he gives here. He definitely gives a big shout out to Francesco's group, Solar Heads of State, and about the work that Dr. Perez has done to advance the idea of big solar and how it can work with the grid. So we're at a point where at what cost and what must change is really the question before islands start disappearing. My talk would not be complete if I didn't also name drop about the companies on Puerto Rico, and this is just a small subset of them, but the ISO group, Maximo Solar, Winmar, Warren Del Caribe, Universal Solar Products is a group that Ron Leonard's working with down there. Really innovative companies that have the know-how and the entrepreneurship to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Our last speaker, Adele Ferranti from NYSERDA, will remind us that it takes a trained personnel to build all those things we're dreaming of. So I'm looking forward to hear you, Adele.
Adele Ferranti, New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. I've been at NYSERDA for 29 years, and I'm proud to say I started our photovoltaic incentive program at NYSERDA about 15 years ago. And in order to develop a robust incentive program for photovoltaics, we had to really develop the infrastructure, the training infrastructure, the competent installers to install PV and to do it right. So we were privileged to work with the Department of Labor, SUNY, CUNY, and NYPA this spring. We went to Puerto Rico and presented some of our activities in the workforce training area. Since then, NYSERDA has been a partner in our proposal to the Solar Foundation, and passed on to the U.S. EDA for a $4 million project to help Puerto Rico build their solar businesses and to train their workforce. And for New York, for us, it's all about building a talent pipeline, building a pipeline of workers that are going to do this job right, do it well, whether it's PV, energy storage, we're looking at heat pumps, and some of the lessons we've learned, we're sharing with Puerto Rico so they can build a talent pipeline as well. And it's both new workers and existing workers. And it's everything from basic skills and getting people into these fields all the way through advanced skills. It's internships, it's apprenticeships, it's on-the-job training, it's more than just classroom training. So some of the elements that we've been trying to leverage and coordinate with other agencies so we can bring some of that knowledge to Puerto Rico is trying to figure out how we can leverage existing infrastructure and training, how we can partner with manufacturers, how we can work with existing laboratories and expand those for hands-on training, and try to help develop sustainable training models. We've done a lot of projects at NYSERDA, and the good projects are those that continue after our money goes away. We can't keep funding the same things over and over. We've got to find very smart ways to develop sustainable training models, and I think that really is going to apply in Puerto Rico as well. Some of the examples that we've shared with the folks in Puerto Rico is our work with the unions, working with the IBEW to develop photovoltaic training. We've helped them develop training for electric vehicle charging stations, working with technical high schools like the BOCES here in New York. We provided some of the funding to NAPCEP to develop some of the original certifications for photovoltaics. IREC, the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, to help accredit training organizations. And we had a great project with Hudson Valley Community College where they partnered with SunPower, leveraging manufacturer dollars to develop training at Hudson Valley Community College that led to CEU training, degree program training. When SunPower was using the system, they trained Hudson Valley's trainers, and when SunPower is not using the training systems, Hudson Valley gets to use them. Again, trying to leverage partnerships. One of the great programs I want to just talk briefly about, this is really more the long-term opportunity, is our PV Trainer Network. It was a multi-year, 4-year program to train public officials about PV. Anyone that had a hand in photovoltaic design, reviews, permit approvals, inspections, first responders. We invested $4 million to train all those folks that are going to have an impact on photovoltaic systems. And it's something we think is going to be important as Puerto Rico grows their PV infrastructure. We had in-person trainings, we had webinars, we reached over 600 municipalities in the PV Trainers Network. We had technical assistance, train the trainer modules, again, trying to develop sustainable models that would be around long after our funding went away. Technical assistance, we had an Ask the Expert portal. We could provide municipalities assistance as they were reviewing permits. We looked to help develop standard permit applications. We developed all sorts of resources. We listened to the municipalities, we heard where the gaps were, and we provided training elements to support those needs. Again, it's just an example of how we developed a sustainable infrastructure for PV training, and in this case, it was really targeted at the municipal officials. So again, I think NYSERDA is really well positioned to work with the Department of Labor, to work with NYPA, CUNY, SUNY, to figure out how to share our lessons learned. We're hoping if we get this federal grant, we can bring SUNY and CUNY instructors to Puerto Rico, with NYSERDA providing funds for travel, for lodging, and share curriculum we've already developed. So it's an exciting opportunity for us to share lessons learned, including things that didn't work. So thank you very much.
So we didn't go too much over time, and we have time for the formal part of the show. So I would invite all the panelists to come back. Sorry, I should have told you before, and sit by the table. I will stand up. But you guys. So first, I will open to the audience for questions. Yes?
There was a lot of great discussion on PV, but nobody mentioned solar hot water heating. Is that a significant thing to consider at all?
Well, let me try that one. If you looked at that one name that was up there, Universal, it's a company that actually manufactures solar hot water heaters in Puerto Rico and installs about 600 of them a month.
Here's an easy answer to that, which is that solar hot water, when it replaces electric hot water heating, will offset the need for other electricity on more or less the same schedule as photovoltaics. And so all the things that Richard talked about apply in terms of batteries, possibly even curtailment. Well, I don't know if you can curtail solar hot water, but it's possible. But you know, the exact same challenges and opportunities apply as long as they're displacing electric hot water heat.
Okay, that's a very good point, and I'll leave it at it. We can have some other discussion on solar hot water. Yes?
Hi, my question was in regards to the workforce development piece. So the question is probably mainly for Adele. With the PD initiative program, when you said you were building out the talent infrastructure, what were the hurdles or roadblocks, if any, that were encountered, mainly when it came time to collaborating with other agencies and getting that dialogue started with them?
Yeah, I think sometimes the challenge for us in working with those other state agencies is we have different missions, we have different funding sources, we have different timing to consider, so that is always a challenge. But when we think about some of the stuff we're doing now at NYSERDA to develop a talent pipeline, for example, we have an on-the-job training program where we fund positions, new clean energy hires. We fund the position for 4 to 6 months, and we work closely with the Department of Labor to vet companies, to help them identify the workers they need, to help them develop a training plan. So it's a great example of, at first there were some differences in our objectives and our programs, but we work really closely with the DOL because at the end of the day, we're trying to help those clean energy businesses grow in New York. So we're looking at that